What's up, guys, and welcome to the Innergy Motto. This is a platform where we reveal the life lessons behind paradigm shifters in their field and explore the habits and mindsets that allow us to tap into our energy from within. On this week's episode, we had the chance to speak to a change maker and true leader for humanity. We sat down with Darin Olien. You may know him as the co-star of Netflix's #1 hit docu-series Down to Earth with Zac Efron. He's a wellness entrepreneur, and he's also the best-selling author of the book Super Life. However, since way before that, Darin has been on a mission to help us all achieve optimal health and eternal awesomeness. He's dedicated most of his life to discovering the undiscovered, from exploring the most remote locations across our planet to immersing himself in indigenous tribe cultures to even bringing the world's most nutritious superfoods back to the West. He holds such an in-depth understanding of the environment and what needs to be done to spark change. This year, he launched 121 Tribe, a health app created to give people the practical tools to live an optimized, sustainable life. He's even been invited to speak on panels for the United Nations to speak on humanity's most pressing issues, and he regularly advises global companies and leaders. Darin also hosts the #1 health and wellness podcast, and through his extraordinary business mind, he's been able to create life around his passion, from founding Barucas, a company that distributes a super nut from Brazil, to also partnering with companies that are on the cutting edge of clean energy, zero pollution, and single-use plastics. Guys, you are in for a treat. Join us as we get into sitting with the pain when life hits us hard, how Darin taught himself to embody what drunk is, the best morning routine, the best superfoods, dealing with eco-anxiety, the miracle of water, and so much more. Support this show by hitting that subscribe button and give this video a like to show our guests some love. So now, we present to you the ultra-jacked vegan and the Indiana Jones of superfoods, Darin Olien. Darin Olien, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Very, very good. Happy to be here with you guys.
Really appreciate you having you here, man. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
We don't really know where to start with this, really, because we know that you've been through such a roller coaster ride in the last couple of months. How has that been for you? Like, what do you feel?
Like after the show kind of thing?
Yeah, these past couple of months for you have been
yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah, in general, I mean, yeah, of course, just like everyone, the view of the world has been radically changed. And I think that over the years of life, when adversity hits me, I sit with it, I sit in it, and then I garner and gain the access to new information for myself. And for me, going through stuff, I always come to the realization of what I need to do, how I need to pivot, what I could do to change, and how I then can contribute. So this last few months, COVID, the show coming out, it just, for me, I just drill down into my heart and into what I'm dedicated to more than ever. So I've been more busy now than almost any other time in my life. Mm-hmm. Because I'm aligning with, attuning to, and receiving kind of new collaborations towards, helping people and helping the planet. So, or really, helping the planet is kind of a funny thing, because it's kind of like the planet is God itself. It's really helping us on the planet. And us realizing and recognizing that we are nature, that we are not separate. We've been acting as if we are separate than nature. Mm-hmm. And things don't work well when you're going against the greatest force ever, and that is the force of actual nature, the force that is actually within us, within every cell, with every sentient being, with every great wave, with every great storm, with every great fire, etc. It is the force of nature. So how can we listen? How can we be attuned to that? So I'm doing the very best I can on a daily basis of tuning into that, and tuning into the, almost listening to the wind of all of the information that's around us right now and coming to us intensely. So it's not without pain and sadness and grief and seeing the world and seeing how divisive it is. So it's looking at everything, and it's not saying that everything's rainbows and butterflies at all. I think everything is, you have to sit with all the pain, the sadness, not sit with it and stew in it, but sit with it as a access point to be able to understand it, to then, how can I then contribute in my own way towards things that may be better. So that's what I'm focused on, and it looks like a lot of different projects. It looks like a lot of different people, but I'm telling you, the more I do that, the more optimistic I am, more than ever. I am, even in spite what the world is showing us and the media is trying to delusion us with. I can honestly say with every cell of my body that I am more optimistic for our future than any other time, because of the other people that are dedicating their lives to contributing to greater things and greater ways of living, greater ways of contribution. So every week I am meeting more and more people. I am attuning and lining up with people in projects that are children focused, Gen Z focused, water focused, power focused, sovereignty of voice and expression, and environmental initiatives that have the potential to change the fabric of how we're doing things. So to answer your question in a long form way, in spite of the adversity, I get more eagle-like focused when adversity hits, and I like to have conversations like this and align with people and things that are going to help, change our truth as humanity.
Yeah. And it's amazing you say this, because just before we hopped on the call with you, I was just going over the last episode again, rewatching that last 10 minutes with when you were in the car with Zac, and the power in your voice and just the emotion you transmitted in those last 10 minutes. I think it left everyone like with chills all over their body, especially like I know for me, in a fact that happened. And one thing that stood out to me, and just going deep on the research with you, is that you have probably the strongest sense of purpose of anyone that I've probably seen on the internet or now meeting personally. And it's amazing because you said in that last clip, you said, I'm going to go down swinging to help my human family and to help planet Earth, who is telling us what the fuck is wrong. Like, how did you begin that mission, that sense of purpose? What sparked that? What ignited that in your early days or even now? Like, what is that moment? What were those moments?
Yeah, I mean, it's a series of continuous whispers, I think, and then big events on top of whispers. And I think, anytime there's pain and struggle, it's an opportunity to understand yourself. Anytime and every time. Anytime and every time there's pain and struggle, it's an opportunity to understand more of who you are. And so I've been investigating myself and learning almost the science of me, the who am I, what am I, where am I going, what am I doing, and what's aligned with that, and what are the motivations of all of that. And so for me, that happened actually, guys. One of the first times I realized I was off was I woke up when I was a junior in college, 21, 22.
Yeah, our age. Yeah.
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 So I woke up hungover, but I had started studying nutrition and physiology, and so I had started learning about what this cool thing that I liked in the body, and who we are in this biological system and the miraculousness of that. And I woke up hungover, and I realized like I felt like crap, right? And it was like a distinct choice of like, wait a minute, this is now stopping me from doing what I want to today. What I want to do is exercise, take care of myself, go out in nature, but I didn't. I felt like crap, so I couldn't do that. I tried to do it, and I ended up throwing up as I was working out.
But can you balance? Can you balance going out, having a little bit of fun, having some drinks, and then the next day?
But that's an individual choice. But my point is, for me, of course, there's all a balance. But for me, listen, I lost a father to alcoholism, like died of alcoholism. So it runs in my family. For me, that choice came, you're either going to go down this road and be a victim to my lineage. His father before him died of alcoholism, or you're going to make a choice. And for me, this is one of the first and most powerful pivoting points in my life. It was like, well, what is alcohol giving you? Well, you get to go out with your friends, you get to let loose, you get to let the stress out. So I said to myself, well, why don't you just eliminate the middleman, alcohol, and learn and teach yourself how to be that? Don't ask me where this came from, but it came to me. And I started asking these questions. I literally went out, partied my ass off, went out with all my friends, and drank water the entire time. I danced, I sweat, I was on the dance floor, I was hitting on girls. I was having a blast because I taught myself just embody what drunk is without the drunk. And I literally had the best time of my life. The best memories of my college career came by way of I didn't miss out on anything. So to answer your question, for me, I eliminated alcohol completely, but I allowed myself to actually have more fun than I was even having with the alcohol because I was conscious, I was present. I could drive all my friends home, make sure they're safe, wake up the next morning and be in alignment with everything. So to answer that was one moment. Mm-hmm. And then I think over a period of time, I realized that every time I made those choices that were aligned with not only who I was and honored myself, was healthy and happy for me, it also started changing my outcome, started changing the trajectory of my life because I was now attuning to something that was bigger than myself. And so it was about a month later where I realized at 4 a.m, this is again when I was a junior in college, I realized I couldn't study anymore. I was falling asleep. I woke up at 4 a.m. I was able to be sharp and clear and study for 2.5 hours before classes and then just nail every test. And I was like, wait a minute, this morning time is unbelievable. And so I started at that point. I've always now woke up between 3:30 and 4 a.m. every day for the rest of my life to this day. And now I've replaced the studying with studying myself. So I do journaling, I do meditation, and I ask myself questions. And then I attune myself to what I'm doing, where I'm going, and what do I want. And so to answer your question, life always throws things at you. But one thing that's always consistent is I'm willing to kind of go into myself. And as those things happen, as my house burns down and I lose everything I own, there is a space and a place that I've cultivated. And that is a consistent space of who I am. And I keep going back to that. And keeping that muscle strong, I'm able to always go home inside myself and reveal and uncover the next sets of things that now I can take in the world. And largely, my house burning down was one of the greatest gifts of my life, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. It wasn't without some serious pain and screaming and anger and sadness, everything. But again, you have to sit with that and allow that to be there and really grieve. Don't blow it off. Don't brush it off. Sit in it and allow yourself to go through that. And then through that pain, it allowed me, even what I convicted on the show, what paled in comparison to what actually continued to manifest as strength inside of myself as a result of all of that pain that I had gone through. So I am a huge believer in using pain as an incredible ally to learn about who we are and course correct if we need to, or deepen in our conviction of what we want to attain and where do we want to go in our life. And it certainly helps you figure out what's bullshit in your life and what isn't. Like, if you're wasting your time on something and you maybe you're doing it for your parents or you're doing it for someone else, but when shit gets heavy, that's a truth serum, man. You really know. For me, when it was happening on the show, I was starting to grieve. I was still in shock.
Actually, can I interrupt you real quick? Because many people might not know this, but during the moment that it was the Woolly fires, right?
Woolsey
fires. Yep. You guys were in Iquitos and you were at this ayahuasca foundation and you were having a sage bath, like smoked up while your house was burning. How did you view that, like, symbolically in your life?
Dude, unbelievable. Yeah. Like the fact that we looked back at that and realized that while I was being smoked out and cleansed, that was about the exact same time my house was burning.
That's crazy.
So I mean, you can't script that. That is like, there's something way beyond us. That's this great mystery of life. And that serendipity, and I believe that while I was being cleansed, I had a huge peace that came over me. I could barely speak for the rest of the show after that. We had a whole thing at the end, which we cut out. We were, saying goodbye to Carlos and stuff. They just cut it out because I think I was just like almost incoherent at that point. And I believe that ceremony was preparing me for what I was about to find out in my life. So I'm incredibly grateful for that moment, because I think my soul and my being was getting prepared for that news.
Wow.
Yeah. Trippy.
Too trippy.
That's trippy. For us, we're, early 20s. So we kind of haven't really experimented too much with those things, but I'm sure it's a profound experience. And I just wanted to ask, what do you recommend for us to go through that, go through those profound experiences or fight through that pain, because a lot of the times we just want to avoid pain. We just want to, as you said, hey man, let me just get a couple beers, forget about it. How can we sit through that?
It's a practice and it's not easy, because pain, definitely we want to avoid it. But that the reptilian brain, you want to avoid technical pain that's going to kill you. but we somehow looped in this emotional pain. And so we never seem to deal with it. And so if you're avoiding it, all it's doing is doing push-ups in the parking lot. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's subconsciously manipulating the shit out of your life. Mm-hmm. So most people don't want to take responsibility for their life. That's one of the biggest human flaws on the planet. No one wants to take responsibility for how they're reacting to life. They're justified. Look at the divisiveness in our country. No one wants to take responsibility. They just want to point and blame. So we have no good role models. In terms of what we're being told, we have zero role models of, I'm in pain, therefore I'm going to own it, I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to change myself. No, we get pain, we get pointed at us, we push back, and we fight. That's the whole political system. It's a bunch of crap. So we see that. And I would say that the easiest way is to sit and be quiet. Just sit and, distract your mind maybe and count your breath in for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, breathe out for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, and do that 5 times. Mm-hmm. You don't have to think about all of this stuff, but just practice quieting. Keep your monkey mind distracted, maybe let it count and do all this stuff, but practice just going inside, just taking a beat. Quit reacting all the time to this world, because that's all it is. It's just winning. It's manipulating us. It's so distracting, this world. And if we're not choosing our life, it's being chosen for us. If we're not waking up in this dream, then we are being controlled by other things and other people. We need you guys. We need your listeners. We need people to wake up. And it can't be through judgment. It can't be through, quote unquote, fighting out of right and wrong. It's got to be through invitation. I'm all for, there's things I'm fighting about my house and sovereignty and power systems and stuff like that. I'm all for, quote unquote, fighting. But that's for also a common good. It's not out of right and wrong necessarily. It's about opportunities to do something different. So I think anyone, we want to blame our parents, we want to blame COVID, we want to blame all of this stuff. It is what it is. The quicker we just go, this is what's happening, period. If you're going to sit and blame anything in your life, you're screwed. You're screwed because you have no control. You've just given it all away. So my thing is, here it is. COVID's happening. The elections are happening. Politicians are idiots. All of them, pretty much. They're largely ineffective. Many NGOs are grossly ineffective at changing, children dying of waterborne diseases, not having food for people around the world. Like, our economic system is failing billions of people a year. Like, we're failing.
Yeah.
So when you acknowledge, here's what it is. Okay, now who am I? Ask yourself questions. Who am I? What am I? What am I going to do to change this? And that's where these conversations, and then you having conversations with more of your friends, and then you start getting into collaborative action out of judgment, not judgment. Mm-hmm. For me, no politics, no judgment. I'm putting together committees right now of kids, of Gen Zs. No politics, no judgment. If you have politics and judgment, you're out. That's it. Don't have time for it. I need people solving things that are going to change people's lives now. Mm-hmm. I'm all for lobbying and doing all that stuff, but you can do all that stuff without judgment. And you can do all that stuff let's get out of right and wrong. Let's create opportunity in other ways. When you do things in other ways and create opportunity, other people will come to you. And then you're creating a unification. And then if it's a truth, more people will come on board. Listen, I've been plant-based for 17 years?
Yeah. And you started it as like a challenge, right? You wanted to,
You'll never once tell me, you'll never once see me trying to convert people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested. It's none of my business.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It's not my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I will answer questions if people, I will honestly answer questions if people ask, but I'm not one of those people that's gonna, stand on the pulpit and be superior and say everyone needs to be plant-based. I'd like them to be. I still think that it's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I still think factory farming is crushing the world.
Yeah.
I still don't think that that's a good thing to do. It doesn't make sense, like all of that stuff. But I'm not going to, try to be judgmental and try to force you into change. I'm going to sit here and continue to move forward. And hopefully that's an invitation more than, that largely down to earth was a very interesting thing because I had to let go of a lot of initiatives that I wanted to hit harder.
Yeah.
And it was the brilliance of the whole team of like, Darin, let's just, have this be it's gotta be entertaining. It's gotta be adventurous.
Yeah. It was the perfect combination. It was the perfect combination.
And honestly, that is 100% not because of me.
Yeah.
like I am definitely having fun, and they kept those clips probably too many than I was, and cut away some of the stuff that we may have been getting into that was a little more intense. But that was the brilliance of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And that team created a bridge of like, we're not going to lecture people. We're going to show people the greatness of people around the world.
Yeah.
And that there's other ways of doing things. And that was largely extremely effective because it spoke to people that were not necessarily living in this space. They got inspired and touched by something that they didn't know much about.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it seemed like they cared about something that they didn't expect.
Yeah, so, you guys really reached a wide audience. I mean, you're even saying in a podcast from someone that's 9 years old to a 70-year-old are saying like, wow, this made me realize some different topics in my life that I can change. And going back to the point where you were saying that it's so important for our generation, especially, and the younger generations to wake up and take action. I was really impressed because Zac Efron, and you were mentioning this, what really brought you on that show was him telling you, I want to make a change with my platform. Like, I really want to make something good. And he's an ultra celebrity. So that's, I mean, for him to say that, that's really impressive. But how can individuals like us, normal people, like we want to make change. We see these types of documentaries. We see A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough, which I extremely recommend. We see those shows and we're like, we want to do something now. Where would you start? Like, what would you tell someone?
It's a great question. And one that I've actually been diligently working on to have those avenues, because I too would be asking the same things in your position. And I haven't seen quite yet. I did a talk for the UN with a bunch of young delegates called Younga 2020. Mm-hmm. And this great facilitator, Kelly Lovell, was a great Gen Z that's kicking ass. And then I did another talk at the Chelsea Film Festival, and this other girl, Haven is her name. And then I talked to a few universities, environmental groups. So I've been having many talks, mm-hmm. like now thousands of kids. and I don't mean that in disrespect, but I'm just saying, like, in you guys' age bracket, and what and there is, a few things that seem to be very clear. They're inspired. It's like you guys are inspired. You want to do something about it. What do I do? So I'm trying to solve some of those answers by collaborating with more and more people, and we're creating some potential platforms where we'll have a media platform where we're out of YouTube and Instagram potential conflicts, and we're in our own platform. We're able to communicate together, and then I'm creating peer to help peer. So right now, my next newsletter will be the first sustainable environmental research group that is your age group, facilitated with and by my goddaughter, who just graduated from Emerson and was the head of the president of her environmental group, who I hired.
Yeah.
So she's running it, and it's going to be peer supporting peers in a type of platform. And we're also doing it through vetting companies that are doing good for people and the planet. So we're trying to create this place, this safe place that's really created by you guys, giving you guys the information that you can understand. So if anyone's listening, just go to darinolien.com, sign up for the newsletter. And here's what I want. I don't have it figured out, but we are starting, and we have started doing some of that research of that new team. And I want feedback. I want topics. I want better ways of getting you guys information and keeping you guys inspired. So that's one thing that was so obvious to me is your generation was screaming, wanting these results. So I am working my ass off to do it. And we're also working with another company that we're going to collaborate with. And that's, we haven't quite sorted it out, but I'll still give the name. It's a company called kindhumans.com. And it was these ex-guys from GoPro and Red Bull. So they're like, they made their money, they did that whole thing. So now they're coming together going, what can we actually do to help change the planet? So we're combining on some stuff and trying to create that same platform and protocols and place where people can come together. And I'm open to suggestions because I don't have the answers, but I am absolutely willing to kick ass and get the answers and create this place for you guys to have a platform to help steer us towards the future, because we're driving a car that doesn't work, and we need a whole new way of doing things. And that being said, I have a lot of projects that when I tell you about some in the next year or two, you'll freak out with the amount of clean energy tech and like incredible technology that is so exciting.
Let's go. Nice.
And there's another company, just to give people some hope. There's another company I just signed on as an advisor for, and it's called Footprint, and it's a company that's providing alternatives to single-use plastic right now to some of the biggest companies on the planet. Cargill, Pepsi, McDonald's, all of these guys are starting to jump on board because they're seeing you guys and us as customers going, no mas, we cannot do this anymore. And so, and also big agricultural companies are signing on to get rid of their pesticide farming production. These things are happening. Absolutely. So it's changing. We just don't know that, which is part of the reason I'm jumping on board to help kind of get these messages out, because you guys need to know there's some big ass companies from Visa that's helping small businesses to Jeep Wrangler, who's American born, all this stuff, who's going electric, to all these other electric cars. to Harley Davidson creating an electric vehicle. Yeah. So like, listen, some of this is greenwashing and they just want to get a piece of the feel good, but it doesn't matter. If they know they need to provide better solutions and they're going to get a marketing spin out of it, that's fine, because eventually they'll have to just keep going anyway and do everything better. So the pressure is being put on, and the market analysis is very clear that we keep putting pressure on these companies to be transparent, then they will have to be, period.
Yes.
And it's happening.
It's amazing, man. And, in our journey, we'd be happy to help out, whether it's a newsletter or whatever, for any suggestions, etc. Because
please, you guys leave make sure my assistant has your info, because I definitely want to see if you guys want to do some stuff with us for sure.
For sure, brother. And it's so relieving to hear everything you're saying, because we tend to focus on the negative. Like, that's how our brain works. So for you to be here telling us like, yo, these big companies are moving the needle, that's so relieving to hear. And especially, I think Alvaro and I, we're also collaborating with a sustainability brand right now. And we want to do a little mini segment on how do you deal with eco anxiety, eco eating, and eco business. And let's touch upon a little bit about eco anxiety. After watching your series, I'm sure most of the listeners or most of the viewers were like, damn, like, what have we done with the world? You were saying the Amazon indigenous tribes have been saying that the world is changing and all this, and we know that it's changing, but how do you deal with that anxiety? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's important. I think it's natural, number one, to feel the magnitude of that. And I think that's important to acknowledge. So I would say, don't get caught into the first initial response of anxiety. Let it sit in your heart. Like, let it come in, so you can fully acknowledge the reality. Because the thing is, it's the same thing about grief. We just want to blow off the pain. And if we keep, from my point of view, anxiety is just this certain level of nervous kind of energy, whereas what is it actually? What is this energy that I'm feeling? Ask a question within it. Let it sit in your heart. Let it give you some information, but it can't give you information if you're thinking you're wrong by having this feeling. A lot of times people are more empathetic. They feel more than they're willing to acknowledge, because you can feel someone angry who comes into a room right away, right? You feel it. You're like, oh boy, that guy's putting off some vibe, or that girl. Yeah. But the thing is, when we start acknowledging these bigger issues that's going on within our humanity, about people not having power, water, food, animals going in mass extinction, treating people horribly, treating animals, treating our planet horribly, I think it's important for us to sit with that. And then taking that anxiety and transmuting it into positive action. And so that's the transmutation. You don't want to sit in the judgment of yourself or anyone else with anxiety, because that's the trap. If you're sitting in that frantic judgment potential, now you're going to miss out on the opportunity, because now you're just sitting here pointing because you're uncomfortable. Whereas if you let it sit and you let it seep in your heart, going, okay, this is what's happening. What can I do to contribute? Who can I talk to? Who can I be? How can I go into action? How can I change to better facilitate a better planet? So again, going into that type of action to transmute some of that stuff. And then when you do, you're not putting off that energy anymore. You're putting off more of a love, more of a connection, more of a collaboration. So then you and we start vibing, and we're like, okay, cool. We could also vibe with judgment. You got pods of people all over the world that's like, they're wrong, this politician there. And then, okay, they can keep that shit because largely nothing happens except the detriment of everyone in that vibe. And then nothing really gets done. Yeah. And that's the issue. That's the very issue that I'm kind of suggesting that we've already failed at. We're not good at that. We're just staying in this. So my suggestion is sit with that, ask some questions within that, and then ask yourself, who do I want to be in this world? Because right when you attune to that, you're gifting yourself non-judgment and then collaboration and love in action. And now you're intimately healthier as a result. And then you're attuned to something much bigger than yourself. And that is where we all need to be. At the same time, take care of ourselves and our lives. But that would be a few of my suggestions if you're caught into the anxiety of things.
Wow.
Hey, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, Darin. It's really hard to thank you for giving us that positive also reception on the movements of society. You know, there's actually good things going on and all this. So, is it okay if we change the subject a little bit, go into the nitty gritty of nutrition and everything? Just wanted to start off asking, I mean, as you said, you've been vegan for 17 years. Can you invite us by saying, what is the best recommendation to, why are you vegan, and how can we slowly cut off so much factory meat? Maybe, start off with grass-fed meat, etc. But, what do you recommend?
Yeah. Well, listen, again, in my studies and research and journey, I was always, in my superfood hunting and being in 40 plus countries, I was being exposed to some of the greatest foods in the world, greatest herbs, botanicals, realizing that we have these plant allies. The more I started consuming, the more I started learning, I was like, wow, these have all the nutrients. And then I looked at the amount of energy it takes to digest meat and how almost perfect our digestion has to be in order to break down flesh of another being, right? Extremely difficult. And so the energy requirements, not to mention like discovering certain things like, the immune system actually attacks that meat first because it's a foreign entity that's coming into the body. Now, listen, the body is always on alert when you're opening up your mouth and putting something in it, but the flesh has a whole different set of bacteria and micro and virus activity. So I just started questioning, like, well, they talk about this protein thing. There hasn't been anyone in the modern world that has ever died of any protein deficiency.
Yeah, Darin is huge, by the way, just so you guys know.
Well, I certainly have, I certainly am as strong as I was when I was your guys' age. So I can still pick up 100-pound dumbbells and start throwing them around. So that very question is just ridiculous. And I'm not an anomaly. I just choose to eat very well and choose nutrient-dense foods. And so when you look at the body doesn't want to get rid of protein. So as cells have autophagy and they start to break down, which is normal, your body is recycling the body all the time, right? And so you're replicating new cells, you're getting rid of other ones, and it doesn't want to get rid of those amino acids, which are the building blocks of the protein. So the body actually uptakes and reuptakes and recycles proteins. So no one's talking about that. So at this whole idea of like, eat all this protein in every meal and all of this stuff. I'm like, well, that's just horrible in terms of the energy load that it's taking, and it just doesn't make sense physiologically. So I just sort of was like, well, if you eat a diversity of plants all the time, it breaks down a lot easier in the body, essentially, and you're getting all the amino acids you need over a period of time, and you don't have to have it in each one of these meals. So I would just recommend for people to practice, because usually it's a cultural thing that's a strong indicator that we just culturally have gotten used to certain dishes as certain meals, and socially, and then habitually, we're just used to this meat sitting there and then all these other things. So, start with one meal, a fully plant meal, and just challenge your habits. And that's the best thing you can do with eating anyway, is challenge your habits, because our habits, our ancestors ate 300 different types of largely plants over a year's time, and we're kind of centered around 30. So not only have we lost the nutrient density from the food selection, we've also lost the diversification of all the antioxidants and minerals and constituents that has. So it's an easy way. Plus, factory farming is choking and killing us as a human species. So one really easy way to eliminate or at least eat less meat is buy the very best meat, factory, grass-fed and all of that stuff. Buy the very best, and it's going to be absolutely ridiculously expensive. That's okay, because you don't need that much. So just eat a little bit. If you need it at all, eat a little bit, pay for the extra, because or else you're getting glyphosate, pesticides, hormones, and a bunch of other pus-inducing bacteria. Like, you might as well pay for that. And it's one thing that happened again in college. I started seeing, like, man, what I put into my body is going to make such a difference, and I'm not going to skimp. Even at college, when I made no money, I started going, I'm not going to skimp on my food, because that's one of the most important things we can do.
Yeah, Darin, and that's powerful, because I wanted to just share this little story. I mean, for me, my first year of college, I was spending the majority of my budget on parties, on alcohol, and other shit. You know what I'm saying? But now, like, when I went through this transition, I won't get into that, but right now, one of my biggest expenditures is on my food, on my nutrition. And I became also like this superfood fanatic. I go to the herbalaries. I think that's how, los herbolarios, and they sell goji berries, they sell cacao nibs, and I'm like a fan of that. And that's why I resonate a lot with you. Would you mind telling us what are like the top superfoods in your diet?
Well, they change all the time, because they feel like my children at this point. But I'm certainly always consuming medicinal mushrooms. One of my favorite is chaga mushroom, so I'll take that every morning. Chaga mushroom is an ancient kind of the grandfather of medicinal mushrooms, adaptogenic, so it adapts to what your body requires, and supporting stress levels. So these kinds of things are super important right now, and huge antioxidants. So medicinal mushrooms, a great tonic to drink in the winter, drink during COVID, just keep your immune system and your body regulated, because largely when the body's off, it's more susceptible to disease. And then, I'm a huge cacao, chocolate guy, 100%.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Cacao. It's such a great, phenylethylamine, and,
but not chocolate, right? We're not talking about chocolate. Are we talking
about? Normal chocolate, not so good. High theobromine, 98. Well, listen, if people focus on 75, 80, 85, 90% cacao chocolate, then largely, and staying away from milk.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a podcast, Fatal Convenience, coming out on Thursday about the detriments of milk. So people can read that, especially it's detrimental for children. And just the fact that people still drink milk, it just blows me away. Living raw spirulina, not dried form, actually from a raw living that's frozen, so it's alive. It's got all the B vitamins.
What does that look like? Because I usually see they sell them in the powdered form.
Yeah, you lose especially a lot of the B vitamins. You lose a lot of the constituents, and you keep kind of some of the chlorophyll and some of that stuff, but it's really frozen in a paste.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if I know Italy was creating a fully enclosed, I don't know what label that's under, but I know here in the States there's some incredible companies. I get those delivered all the time. And then listen, a diversity of adaptogens from maca to ashwagandha, astragalus, schizandra is one of my favorites. Traditional Chinese medicine, one of the oldest herbs on the planet.
Schizandra? And how do you spell that? What is that?
Schizandra. Yeah. So
we'll put it in the show notes. No worries.
Yeah, Schizandra. Schizandra. There's a few other spellings of it, but Schizandra, traditional Chinese medicine. And then I'm a huge fan of moringa aloe, which is a leaf. It's a massive 35 antioxidants, chlorophyll, complete proteins, and of course, my favorite is the one I found out of Brazil in the Cerrado called barucas. So it's the most nutrient-dense nut in the world. We also have tree planting programs in the Cerrado.
Yeah, Max Lugavere was saying that it was like a peanut on steroids, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it's converted a lot of people in terms of it's just so good tasting, and you wouldn't believe that it's so good tasting and has more nutrients than any nut. So it's so satisfying, and we just came out with a butter that is literally one of the best tasting butters you will ever have, I promise. So we're super stoked for that because it's helping the indigenous people, it's helping the environment down there, and it gets people good nutrition.
You do shipping to Europe around this area?
Yeah, we're working on the shipping costs have been so incredibly high. So we're working on that, I believe, with Amazon and some other outlets right now. So the shipping has been, I've heard some complaints about how, and we don't make money on shipping. It's just the certain cost coming from Brazil. But we're working on all that, trying to scale all that up. But so, there's, gojis. I've consumed gojis for probably 20 years. It's fantastic. Certainly.
How about the ones that are in any supermarket? Like the foods that are superfoods but aren't so hard to reach.
Yeah, so I mean, superfoods. I mean, obviously, the definition of superfood is vague and specific at the same time. So it's only think of it as every calorie you take in, every bite you make, is it more nutrient dense than the other? So, like an example is a bite of an apple compared to a bite of a donut. So in this comparison, an apple would be a superfood, say. But when you look at kale, chard, whatever, you want to make sure that you're, number one, not getting conventional food. If you can support local growers who are not using pesticides and stuff like that, and their soils are healthy, then largely that is not the same as the conventional. So you want to support that, and that largely will give you more nutrients, more antioxidants, and then support a community as well. So I would say that's superfood as well. So you want to try to get as locally sourced as possible and support those farmers markets as much as possible. So, and any kind of green, the super deep greens, spinach, kale, chards, things like that. And then one easy hack, one incredible superfood that anyone can make for cents, for 10 cents. You could put broccoli seeds in a mason jar and either put a rubber band over a cloth, or you get a mesh top.
Yeah.
Yep. And so you can put about 3 to 4 tablespoons in a mason jar, and rinse it with water twice a day, and then over the next 5-6 days, all of those will sprout, and they're some of the greatest superfoods ever. Sulforaphane, antioxidants, protein, and it's literally costs you a few cents, and you've got an incredible salad that you can add to anything.
I'd never heard of that. That's crazy.
Incredible. And there's all kinds of different seeds, but specifically broccoli seeds and broccoli sprouts are some of the greatest superfoods you can consume.
That's awesome, man. I also saw on your show, and I think it's very relevant for our listeners, at least for me, because it was such a shock. I wanted to get into water as well. How can we measure how good our water is somehow, or also what kind of water should we have?
Yeah, it's tricky to know from a global perspective. There is I believe there's some organizations that I was just on a panel with this badass Erin Brockovich. You guys ever heard of Erin Brockovich? She had a movie out, and she had a movie out that she was going against these water. Julie Roberts played her. So the movie's called Erin Brockovich. Check it out. It's an incredible movie.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was on a panel with her recently, and she did, I believe, have a website that can show testing of municipalities. I don't think it goes beyond the United States, but this is what I will say. Even if you tested it, guaranteed it's going to come back with things that you don't want to drink. Guaranteed. Yeah. So your best, even though Martin in the show talked about like how he doesn't like purified water, yada, 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 that's true. But I mean, we're talking about these, we were drinking water that was more expensive than expensive wine. So that's not sustainable. But what we need to do is, when we have water coming out of our tap, we have to filter it. So we need to purify the water. So in theory, if we had our own aquifer or spring and it was clean and tested, then fine, that's the water you want to drink. But 99% of us don't have that. So the best thing to do is purify it through reverse osmosis filtration system. It doesn't allow those particulates to get through, so it cleans out that water. Or distillation, where it vaporizes and then recondenses and doesn't allow the pollutants to come with because it's the particulates. So that's an easy way to clean your water and very inexpensive. You can get an RO unit, a couple $100. You can get a distillation unit for $100. But then the very important thing is you need to add the right kind of minerals back in, because we need minerals on a cellular level, and also because we're conductive as a voltage regulator of that's our body's
energy.
Work. Our bodies literally work on voltage. So you need that electrolytes for the voltage to be regulated with that water. So easy, take a pinch of unrefined crystal salt, Himalayan salt, Get some great salt from the Baltic Sea, whatever you want to add, a pinch per glass or a half a teaspoon per gallon. And now you have a little electrolytes that go a long way. And now
Is this every time we drink water, we
Yes.
add a little bit of the minerals? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
If it's coming from, now listen, if you bought a spring water, then it's going to have natural minerals already in it. But I'm saying, like, to eliminate single-use plastic, which is also an important thing, you might as well just create your own water from home, and get an RO unit, get a distillation, add your pinch of Himalayan crystal salt, buy a nice glass. I use a cobalt blue glass. I also actually have a new living vortator that I'm going to be bringing out to the world soon. It vortates the water and it energizes the water again, like it would be if it was going down the stream. So that's another aspect of water to enliven it again. But for your listeners, RO system, distillation, add a pinch of unrefined, not regular salt, to it, and then that's a great hydrative step.
Yeah. And maybe one last thing on water, just to blow people's minds, is the research behind the Japanese scientist, his name Emoto.
Yeah.
What can you say upon that?
Yeah, this is it's a big topic.
Yeah, in a summarized way.
Well, what we realize is water is not just H2O. It's H3O2. There's other activating principles to water. There's frequencies that are represented in the water. There's vibratory aspects, and the water is influenced by things. So Emoto realized that even writing a word on the glass of a container and then having the water in that container, realized by taking photographs on a molecular level, realized that the sacred geometry on the molecular level of the cells of the water molecules were changing as a result of the vibratory aspect of the word: love, hate, fear. And it blew people away because it gave the unseen seen. So you realize we think that we're not vibrational beings. So our thoughts create reality. So they also are songs of vibration. So if we say we hate you, well, we're literally affecting the water inside of ourselves by that action. And we're also projecting it at somebody. So we realized that it blew our minds in terms of, like, whoa, water is like this. It's like this blank. Think of it like this. It's like a blank hard drive, and it doesn't have a point of view what's impressed upon it or stored in it. So if we have, judgmental data on our computer and we want to save it, we absolutely can. The data, the backup or the storage facility doesn't care what we store on it. Even if it's happy stuff, it doesn't matter. The same thing with water. So the water is influenced by energy, and largely it came from being influenced by the sun and electromagnetic fields, and also the earth and the electromagnetic fields of the earth. And that created structure that is necessary to also receive not only information, but also hydrative effect in the body. So they realized that there's all these things that are such a great mystery that they don't even know how. They're testing these things and seeing that it's occurring, but some of the greatest scientists in the world don't know how it's happening and don't know how water is doing it. And Dr. Gerald Pollack, one of the great water scientists of our time, discovered that there's a fourth phase of water, and that is, it's a gel-like phase. And they're like, what? And what he saw was that when water would come up against a hydrophilic surface, similar to that of next to the cell next to a cell. So the membrane of the cell would come up against it. And what would happen was the protons and electrons would get pushed out, and this little zone in between the cell membrane and the rest of the water was called an exclusion zone. And it absolutely was different than the rest of the water. And it was gel-like. It was structured differently. It was desalinated. It had no minerals. And it was actually energized. So just by the action of the water coming up to every of your 70 trillion cells in your body creates energy just by coming up against it. So it literally is water coming up against your cell is creating energy by pushing the protons and electrons out of this exclusion zone. Therefore, we realize that water is a conductor of energy. And so it's another form of energy that we had no idea, that goes beyond carbohydrates, proteins, fats, all of that stuff, and literally shows us that hydration, water, is creating energy for us in the human body.
That's so crazy. And we're 70% water, right?
Yeah, so not only that is it creating energy, what kind of water then are you consuming? And where our frequency. So number one, what are your thoughts saying about yourself? You're affecting your water. You're literally structure of your water. And now when you're consuming water, be kind.
Be kind
to it. Yeah.
So use words wisely.
Use words wisely, period. Judgmental, again, we go back to that judgmental side. It does no good for you. As soon as you're in judgment, you're affecting you. You're at the effect of that judgment. It has nothing to do with that other person.
Yeah. I want to hear Alvaro's thoughts on that, because he looks like he's...
I'm just shook. I'm thinking like water is the creator of life in a way, and things like this. Like
100%.
But in a sense where, because no one knows how was the first ever life being in planet Earth, and it was like a mixture of the sun and storm and tornado and volcano. And I'm thinking like this fourth phase of water, this extra exclusive outside of the cell membrane, etc. Like, holy shit,
Yeah.
I just didn't. I don't know. I'm very shook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it goes very deep. Is bacteria, and bacteria evolved to mitochondria. Mitochondria evolved to utilizing water, and it just goes on to life. 2 billion years ago, 2.5 billion years ago. So, yeah, but they realized that, then that structure is in photosynthesis too. So when the UV and the electric fields of the sun hit the plant, it's structuring that water. That same structure is happening in the water. Right. So then photosynthesis and the conversion of light energy, and that's what people don't realize. If you really break this down, food is literally you're just converting light energy from those plants into usable energy for you. So, and then, Matt Maruka, we did a great episode on
raw optics.
Yeah, that's right. So you realize that there's a lot of interaction that just by getting your skin exposed is structuring your water, by the way. So it's structuring your water. It's optimizing your immune system. It's turning on your mitochondria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's amazing. This, again, I go back to, it's just, I bow at the unbelievable mystery of what we are. And the more we learn, the more we realize. I mean, every scientist, I talked to 50 scientists, some of the top in the world, some of the smartest people in the world who are studying water, none of them have a clue at the core what water is. They don't know how it's doing it. They don't know. They see the effect and they can study it and have peer-reviewed research and all of that stuff, but they don't know how it's doing it. They just know that it's happening. And, I think water is a blatant celestial kind of entity that is exhibiting quantum mechanics in front of our face, instantaneous information in and out of that water, beyond light, chemical, right? So it's a chemical process just by that salination, that salt, and that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's chemical, and we can measure that. And then it's biological. So it's biological as it interacts with our body. It's converting energy. It's moving waste back and forth the cell. It's eliminating waste. It's a conductor. It's a facilitator. It's also a cushion. So it's all of these biological processes, all of these chemical processes, and then all of these quantum expressions. And you're like, surface tension. No one can explain surface tension. Zero. How can certain animals run across the water? How can, when you try to pour, there's a certain amount where there's a tension building up that you can see it. How is surface tension? Why is it that holding it together and it's not just spilling everywhere? And so it's just in our face, this mystery and this miraculousness. And to just say that it's H2O is ridiculous because it's demonstrating things that go beyond just a normal molecular structure.
Yeah, it's crazy to get into that. And we know we've taken a lot of your time. We just want to start wrapping all this up. And we told you in the beginning, before recording, that some of our listeners have sent in questions. We wanted to read a couple of them. So let's see this one. Okay, this one is from Juana. She said, "Hello, Darin. I'm a big fan from Colombia, and I just wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit more about your personal morning routine and maybe what habits you would believe to be the most useful when someone is begging to make changes in their life."
Well, I think, good question. I think it goes back to what we started before, but more specifically, I start my morning 3 hours before I need to do anything. So I make sure I have the time. So I wake up, I drink my water, I sit down, I do breathing exercises, just something to distract my mind, calm down, focus on myself. And there's a lot of techniques for meditation. And then I go into a stream of consciousness for writing. And so I'll just kind of shut my eyes and write kind of to my creator, to God, to the universe, whatever you want to call it. I'll tune in to that and then just write from that place and let that out, and followed by gratitude of sometimes a list of 30 things I'm grateful for. And then that attunes me to there is nothing wrong with life. When you're full of gratitude, there's no other place for any distension to be. And then from there, that will gradually move me into then actions that I'm taking that are now attuned to what I just tuned into. So then it will be adjustments I need to make on certain things that I'm doing, or I see something that I didn't see, and then I have an idea and I'll put it out there. I'll write it down, and then that may manifest into something or it may not. But that's what I do. And I do that without fail every morning, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. That morning ritual of meditation, stream of consciousness, writing, or just reflection, journaling is I think a place for everyone to start, and then just create it how it works for you.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And really, all the other questions we've covered. So we talked about vegan diet. We talked about so much in this conversation. One that I think we addressed, but it could be like a final statement from you, would be this is from Antonio, and I'm going to rephrase his question a little bit, but tell us more about, like, right now in this age that we're in, that we're being called to live, the abundant information that's around us, the pandemic, the political atmosphere. What is one catalyst that will lead to a huge consciousness shift on the planet?
I think it's the realization that we give our power over to others, and we don't realize the infinite power we have inside of ourselves to not only be the facilitators of our own happiness and joy, but also be the facilitators of incredible change. And so I think these pandemics and these things like that is a complete lie to say that we don't have the power to change all of this, everything we're not happy with. We as people need to wake up to the power and the light that's within us and stop being a victim in any way and in every way, and stand up. And you may not know the answers, you may not know how, but the first thing to do is say yes to the beauty, the brilliance, and the magnificence of who you are, period. There's nothing wrong with you. There never has been. Own it and step up and start healing so that you can kick ass in the world.
Easy.
Amazing. And we usually have this final question that Emilio and I usually ask, and here it is. What makes you wake up in the morning? Or to rephrase, what is your energy, your internal sources of energy that bring you up to your highest potential, spiritually, physically, and mentally?
Well, it's I think the thing that wakes me up every morning is the thing that I tune into every morning, and that is this mystery beyond myself. And I'm it's intoxicating to me. Like, literally having the time, creating the time to tune in to, it's that personal time of whatever the universe or your God is, the angels, whatever you want to call it, to personally listen to that with no other thing in between that, no religion in between that, no what other guru or whatever person says, just get rid of all of that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think we need to sit down and listen. For me, it's such a personal thing that I've gotten used to that personal feeling of what that attunement is. That gets me excited, because coming out of that, when I feel a project or I feel a person, I feel senses of that, and then I go with that. It's really nothing to do with money or anything else. Whenever I've gotten distracted, largely the project doesn't work, or I lose money, or the person's an asshole. And if I listen, then I follow that. So listen to your personal guidance. So my excitement every day is going, how is this day going to go? Because I'm going to listen to my personal guidance of that love, that light, and that creator. Wow. So that literally gets me fired up all the time, because it shows up. It shows up in this morning I had 2 hawks hovering over on top of me in the wind, heavy winds, but they were just sitting there hovering in the wind. And I just stopped, looked up at them, and felt that thing. And I think the world is always communicating all the time in our dreams, through people, through animals, through nature. That stuff fires me up.
Yeah. And as college students, we may not really know exactly what we want to do in the future or what path we want to take. And starting at this age to tap into what you're talking about, that'll change a lot. Like that's really powerful. And before we move on, where can people find you? You've mentioned your websites, but where can people connect with you on all your amazing projects?
Yeah, so darinolien.com. Check out my subscribe there, because I want your feedback. And then Darin Olien on social, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that stuff. So yeah, all those places. Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the Innergy Motto podcast. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate all you're doing in this world. You're really moving the needle, as Zac said in the last episode. So
you're killing it.
Yeah. Praise
Thank you, man. I have only just begun. So guys, stay connected, man. I want to see what we can do together.
For sure, man.
All right. Cheers, brothers.
Cheers. So that's a wrap for this week's episode. If you guys made it up to here, you are the real MVP. Thank you guys for going on this journey with us, and we'd love to connect with you on social media. Just check the links in the description. Also, hit that subscribe button to support and be a part of the Innergy community. Stay blessed and see you next Thursday.